What on earth has happened? The Carlton fan base is stunned. The Carlton players look cooked. Nothing is going right. Now, before we begin, let's establish the groundwork. Carlton should have lost based on their first half, but the margin is an indictment of a team that was awfully injury hit, making that second half insufferable. 19 second half rotations, 10 a quarter, 5 every 15 minutes. Which essentially is a full rotation missed out on at the midpoint of those 15 minutes. Josh Weddle's post-game comments from an analytical point of view make a lot of sense. As the game wore on and Carlton laboured, Hawthorn spread the ground more expansively, played keepings off and drove Carlton into the ground. Carlton had 4 players poll under 80% game time in the third and none under 87% in the fourth, Jordan Boyd aside. So it would be an absolute no-brainer for a side with far superior ball use to possess such a mindset. But if the loss ballooned in the second half with Carlton's health getting no better, that made the halftime lead unassailable. A 33-point deficit was the nail in the coffin, and especially so when Charlie Curnow went down and a 10-minute faint glimmer came up unrewarded to start the third. Today we're understanding the early game flaws which left Carlton resigned to an unwanted fate. No theme, just clip after clip we're going to roll through from the first half, explain what happened, and go forward. This example shows the need to dumb something down so you don't look as dumb, if that makes sense. That may sound confusing, but hear me out. Kick sprays off the inside of the boot, misaligning the kick to go straight to Sam Walsh. The kick by McGovern doesn't advantage Curnow, but the simple solution to recover the possession: dumb it down. Don't change direction. Your teammate is filling this area up. You're running in that direction. You've got Blake Acres over the top, so maybe you can manipulate that bit of overlap if you cross that bridge. Instead, he's run away from the support that is Matt Kennedy, then tried to take on another tackle, and there goes a potential scoring opportunity from turnover. If this was a bit more team-oriented, dumbed down, and simplified, Charlie doesn't make a right clown of himself. Now, this probably speaks to one of the primary issues in this game. Much like a zone defense gets spread the more expansive the ground is used, rendering it ineffective, Hawthorn getting the ball to the outside in contest did the same. On this example, Meek's tackle kickstarts this play nicely for Hawthorn, with Hewitt's man Newcomb now on the outside and free to exploit the space. With the time and space, Newcomb can survey options. Carlton had more players with stronger distances covered on the day, but here lies the issue. Hawthorn stationed themselves on the outskirts with minimal energy exhausted. Carlton stationed themselves on the inside and get drawn in exerting energy for no impact. With the ball on the outside, Carlton can't cover all angles, and so the minute Newcomb peels around the back, the open side is activated and Carlton are evidently cooked from a balance standpoint. These are the most disappointing kinds of plays when you see the breakdown. I think Boydie's fall actually screwed up the positioning of personnel because he gets back particularly slowly, and I'm not a lip reader, but Vossi is calling out to Kemp. I'm not sure if he was supposed to commit to the contest or roll back in place of Boyd, but apparently McGovern doesn't know either, as he's up at the stoppage with Kemp. Boyd gets back to position, so now he's up at the stoppage and Newman is also up at the stoppage. One of these key defenders should be well back, and you can see McGovern backtracking only when the ball gets inbounded. Kemp's indecisive and he's in no man's land as a result. Cripper gives away a free without even affecting the hit out, and Nick Newman goes from beside Watson to 5 meters off him, and McGovern is still playing in front of Chol. No resistance despite that spare man at back of stoppage. Given that ground they gained at the front of stoppage, that kick's never falling short, and McGovern's outpositioned criminally. There's so many minute details here, and Boydie's injury at that exact time is unfortunate, but you see all those small correctable mistakes stack up for a Hawks goal. Here you can see an example of the Hawks spread, and they're well lined up for it. After a kick inside 50, here's the space. Here's a line of Hawks. There's 5 of them. The longest targets are reachable without interference, and you can have a sea of numbers blood forward. Of course, this falls apart if Carlton won it at ground level, but they don't, and Hawthorn's the beneficiary as they set up for the occasion. And I don't think the issue was broken tackles in this game. I think it was ineffective tackles. Tackles which stuck but still allowed free arms. That ineffective tackle kickstarts this sequence. McDonald was within the line further down the track and connects this one together. Hawthorn didn't necessarily run a ton with the footy, but they ran smarter without it to ensure chains were strongly connected, as we see here with the setup. And now we transition to the second quarter where, of course, a lot of the damage was done. On this example, the minute Hawthorn take the grab, you can see Jarman Impey take off, and it becomes incredibly alarming with all the space in front and the kick enabling the forward run. We saw it with the Newman example before, and we've seen it with many other examples. Whilst both teams were exerting energy without the ball, Hawthorn were doing it to supplement their attacks, whilst Carlton were tiring themselves out needing to halt these attacks. Hawthorn's pace didn't necessarily have to be attached with carrying the ball. It could link to how quickly the man gains distance on their opponent. And so here, Impey gets the handball received. Naturally, you can say it's not good enough to stick this tackle, but a simple sidestep with acceleration is so effective, especially when the defender is running in the same direction and can't preempt the change in movement with all the space to cover. The work needed to be done prior to slow the play up, but it was poorly executed with a simple lapse by Motlop. One of the shocking repetitions of our losses has been the concession of kick-in goals. Carlton executed a strong passage out of stoppage and blew a strong chance at goal. But if we want to talk about deflating a football team, backing that result up with conceding a goal with such ease does exactly that. Scrimshaw is looking on the left-hand side of the ground until this option pops up. One of our leaders has fallen asleep at the helm, too busy looking on the more packed side of the ground. But as we saw on examples as recently as the last, you cannot turn your back on this proactive Hawks side. And so Wheatering's about 20 away from Gunston when he marks. This kickstarts an absolute travesty of a defensive possession. Wheater's allowing an outnumber so easily draws Cowan in to protect the overlap. But he was watching Jai Newcomb, and with Cowan peeling off, Newcomb's darting right up the guts to be the next option. And Newman, who's taking up a decent position in the zone, watching his man to the right, now has to pick up the pieces despite being heavily disadvantaged on the wrong side. And I get Wheatering is trying to plug the down the line kick, but he's been blindsided by opponents the entire possession. And given Newcomb's made the run unattended with Wheater's unsuspecting, he's got no clue there's a matchup to account for. The underrated part about this is that high IQ Kalshadir tap over his head to keep it away from the ball being spoilt over, bringing those other teammates into the game. But Kemp failing to get a piece of the ball, despite sitting in front position, sums up a shambolic defensive play. The first two kicks being achieved so easily from fullback to centre half forward means the rest is a foot race, and Hawthorn were far more equipped with the leg speed to capitalise. Hawthorn had 4 on the first line of the zone, then Williams and Mackay, who were completely useless after one kick, much like the extra numbers close to the ball when the ball got released to Newcomb. So it was essentially a large-scale version of Carlton's numbers getting sucked into the contest and having zero impact, with Hawthorn's numbers on the outside, in this case, the far side, being punishing. That's how you get them queuing up at the end here. Now for Weddle's classy boundary line 6-pointer. Carlton got sucked into the contest again, but this time it was a matter of self-sabotage, not exploitation by the opposition. You can see the way Carlton is sort of arranged with Hawthorn lining the boundary. Hawthorn's pursuit is strong because Carlton are arranged for a handball off the back of stoppage, but forcing players into a rush enables tunnel vision and a lack of rationale. Even with tunnel vision enabled, a 90-degree direction change gets you to those spare numbers with Hewitt the link in the chain. But instead, it's a handball away from the Carlton numbers, right to the Hawks lined up on the boundary. And it's too much for Williams to do. I'd imagine Carlton wouldn't be too mad with conceding such shots, given the degree of difficulty, but it doesn't change the outcome and how we got there. For arguably the second time in this game, Boydie dropping like a sack of potatoes because of injury has cost Carlton a goal. This time because he can't fill the gap Gunston relocates into, which would otherwise be protected had Boyd been able to plant himself in roughly this area. Sard did the gesture for someone to watch behind him, but that man unfortunately was a casualty on the ground. Not saying the Hawks don't mark this if Boyd is in the space, but it's a far larger degree of difficulty. I find it interesting on this kick in the majority of our midfielders are well inside. By default, the back rolls around as the extra to get the dump hand pass, but when Carlton can't get possession, this becomes a liability of course. Newman's gone to block a Hawk to make it a 2-on-2, and Kemp, as the extra man, can take the mark. Kemp is so far under the ball, misjudges it having had no impact, and here lies the issue. Newman's man is open, Nash is the loose on this side, with Sard loose on this side. Hawthorn at the drop of the ball have more numbers. At the fall of the ball is a 3-on-1, becoming a 4-on-1 as Kennedy drops in behind as well. Yet again, it's another of those not broken but ineffective tackles, and Hawthorn with the numbers can simply pick their way through, drawing men in to free up others as runs go unattended. That's how you've got players like Chol Free, who are up at the contest. That's why Waitering needs to roll up. That's why Akers has to roll over to give Carlton a shrivel of representation over the back, leaving Morrison a part of the goal-kicking raffle, doomed from the start. Again, to speak to being aware and alert because Hawthorn will widen the gap on the opponent, Chol was on Mackay in this ruck contest. Chol gambles initially on darting forward, and so when the Hawks do win it out of the middle, that advantage reaps reward. Chol's open on the forward 50 entry, another ineffective tackle which wasn't all that bad considering, and would you look at that, Harry Mackay is invisible on screen and Marby or Chol is wide open, met with a pinpoint precise kick. I mean, this isn't rocket science, just track your man. From the first half alone, I could highlight a myriad of moments which were simple, fundamental skill errors that made the score disparity significantly larger than it needed to be. I think the result of the game will actually blind you from the fact that the intent to play through the middle was there at stages when the game was there to be won. And it was good to see us actually trying to take the kicks on, link up handball and be daring, which has been a fair criticism in recent weeks. Only problem is there's absolutely zero bang for buck with these instances, some of that self-inflicted, and that's adding another layer of frustration knowing its end product or being just that little bit off sharpness wise. I think this sums up where the team was at heading into halftime. Fatigued and severely lacking in a multitude of areas. Carlton win a free kick, Carlton take advantage, and 0.5 seconds later, disadvantage themselves. You could tell there were already ominous signs of Carlton running out of gas. When this was a 4-on-2, the ruckman, the man picking the ball up. And then, a small amount of time later, when they've got 3 looking absolutely spent. Carlton, as we've said, did take the game on periodically, and this occasion is a good representation of it. But Harry Mackay drops like he's been shot, knowing the kick's going straight over his head, and that may or may not be because he mistimed the lead. Hawthorn quite comfortably spread Carlton and then attacked through what they've opened up. As we've said, Moore didn't take a step with the ball in hand, but did all the movement without it. And Carlton were tired chasing. Williams is spent, and Moore has a field to run into, and Hawthorn use width to hit another target inside 50. So overall, this one was a tough watch, and we look ahead. 2 games left, all to play for, albeit with half a team injured. As we've seen in this review, Carlton could be 95% there, but the 5% they're leaving on the table is having an astronomically deadly impact on their ability to win games. The optimism lies in the fact that a lot of it is heavily fixable, but in the same vein, it should have happened weeks ago. So Blues fans, will Carlton flick a switch before the season ends? Do you think that Voss had much say in the first half shenanigans? As much as you may not have enjoyed the game, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for next week's Carlton analysis. But until then, have a good one, stay safe, and bye for now.